And okay, so when we add in our camera, there's a couple things that we're going to need to do to make things a little bit easier to work with. And so one thing is we have to open multiple views. And you'll see why in a second when we start to animate the camera. We're going to want to see what the camera sees, but also be able to animate the camera at the same time. And the other thing is that we have to turn everything into like a 3D layer. It's not really 3D in the sense that it has 3D geometry, but it makes it so that we can animate the camera in 3D space, which is going to be very useful. So I'm going to take my main composition, and I'm going to make a little room down here. I'm going to go to Layer, New Layer. It won't let me do that. Let's try it. Okay, so I have to unselect my other layers, then go to Layer, New, and go to Camera. It's going to bring up this camera with a bunch of different settings. I think we want to leave most of them the same. Let's just double check our instructions real quick. Okay, this says we want a one node camera. Okay, so I think most of these settings are the same. We're going to change it to one node camera. 50 millimeter is good. We don't want depth of field because we don't want to like make certain layers blurry. You might want to play with it. It could be kind of fun, but we don't want that on. I think everything else we want to leave the same. And this is actually telling us that, if we want the camera to work with the layers we have to make them 3D. And I know that, so I'm just going to hit OK. And it's going to tell me some stuff I can do. I can use these other tools to pan the camera. And apparently there's some draft 3D thing. So that's nice to know. So now we have this camera. And the camera works just like any other layer. We can animate all of the properties of the camera. So if we open this up, you can see that there's a transform that has all the same properties that we've learned to animate with our other layers. Position, rotation. There's usually a target, but I don't see that on here. But maybe that's because I haven't done the 3D stuff yet. Anyway, so the next thing that we're going to do is we want all of our layers that are part of the camera to be 3D. And there's this little 3D box here. So I just clicked that on all of these 3D layers, anything that I want the camera to pick up. So that's pretty easy to do. Now we're almost ready to go, but now I need to be able to see the camera view and my camera properties at the same time. So I'm going to change the view, and to do that, I can't really see it. It's all the way over here. So I'm going to move this over a little bit. All the way over here on the right, you have this select view. And if I click on here and I go to two views, now we see what the camera sees over here. And then I can change the view here. So I can go to the front, or what I probably want to do is like the left view, or maybe the top view to animate the camera. And so you can see when I'm in this view, I can move the camera around, and it'll change what the camera sees. And so we can animate the camera moving around to change the view on the scene. So I'm just going to make a really simple animation of the camera. So I'm going to start actually in left view. And there's these properties that you can manipulate in the viewer if you want to, but you can also open them up in here and manipulate them here. And so I'm going to move the camera and zoom in. And yeah, for some reason, okay, normally the camera has a target, which is what I like to use, but I don't see that option here. That's annoying. Let me see if I can Google that real quick. After Effects camera no target. That's not what I'm looking for. That's weird. So normally there's like a thing that you can manipulate to where the camera is pointing. I don't see that here. I'm gonna try deleting this and just adding it again and see if that helps anything. Maybe that's the 2-node camera. Yeah, okay, so I don't know why they say 1-node camera in the instructions, but I think what I want is a 2-node camera. Anyways, we've got our camera. I'm gonna zoom in again, and I'm gonna move it up a little bit on the Y, and then I'm gonna move the where it's looking down a little bit and just get a close-up of our character. So that's where we're gonna start. And of course, we don't want to go above the background and see that white space. So we want to avoid that, but that's also a good reason. If you want, you can make your background much larger than the composition so that you will have a little bit more room there. But I don't, so I'm going to make sure not to see that white bar at the top. So once I've got the camera set to where I want it, I've got the character's face in view, I'm going to keyframe those properties. So the point of interest, that's what it's called, is the first property, and then the position is the second property. You can also do the rotation and the orientation, all these other things, but I'm just going to stick with that. And then I'm going to go all the way to the end, and I'm going to change the position and reorient the camera. So I'm going to move the camera down and back, and I'm going to move this target up. And I want to keep going until I basically see the whole scene. I could probably just zero out these properties. That might save me time, but let's just play around with it a little bit. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And those keyframes are getting added for me as I'm adjusting it. And so now we can go back and watch this, and then we can add more keyframes if we need to at specific points. So we can see the camera is just kind of moving, the position is moving back, but then the angle or the orientation is also changing as we go back. And so we get this nice kind of like pan out from the character's face. And so of course you can also, you can add many more camera changes to that. You can pan the camera in, you can zoom the camera in instead of out. You can just cut at various points, like you could do hold cuts instead of doing a smooth transition. But you can do all of the stuff to animate the camera that you would normally do with other properties. So let's go back to one view and change this to active camera and go to fit, and let's watch this. And so now we get this nice zooming out of our character as they walk through the scene. And maybe we want it to go a little bit faster. We can just go in here and grab these two keyframes and drag them back to here. And so maybe we want the zoom out to happen, but then we kind of pause at a certain place and we see the Earth or the planet coming into view, and that's kind of the beginning of our animation. And that's looking pretty good. So that's the basic idea of using the camera. And then you can, of course, use different scenes. You can have different compositions where the camera does different things to create your different edits and stuff like that. But that's our basic camera overview. Once you've done that, you are ready to export and upload your video to YouTube. So I'm gonna have to leave the video in order to demonstrate this. But I'm going to go over it in class, and we've gone over it before, so it should be review. So once I'm ready here, I'm going to add to the render queue, and I'm going to click output, and I'm going to call this walk cycle 1.mp4. Click save. And then I'll just click render, and it shouldn't take too long. It's pretty short animation, and there we go. So I'll go over uploading this, but this is gonna be the end of the video for After Effects.